created a new strategy around housing that the National Council approved this past spring, and I'm excited to share with you today. And at the core of the goal is this. We want every single Phi Talk chapter to have access to a great housing solution, whatever that looks like to them. Not every chapter needs a house to thrive, so our strongest chapters operate from residence halls or rental houses where brothers naturally congregate. But when housing fits, it can transform your chapter's culture. And I want to see more chapters get there. That means using our resources better, but it also means a really flexible approach. Think of it as a toolkit that your chapter can assemble to create your best housing experience possible. Today, 55 of our active chapters live in a fraternity house. 31 of those own that house. We also have about $2 million in loanable funds and about $500,000 that's available to you right now for new loans. But it's clear we have much more support to provide. And so I promised 3 questions, and the first one we ask is this: how do we manage the properties that we have? You guys have a hell of a tough job running a fraternity house. You're juggling leases and rent and repairs. Some chapters have figured it out, but others really struggle. And so to strengthen housing, we're going to change that. First, Phi Kappa Tau is going to plan to partner with a national Greek housing management firm. And so this will have a range of new services you can opt into, ranging from maintenance and accounting to overseeing your vendors. And we'll be able to provide better pricing and better service with our national scale. And then secondly, we're also planning a comprehensive educational offering. And in our housing committee meeting yesterday, this got a lot of high review, both online and in-person offerings with potential for a new Phi Kappa Tau housing summit. So some things that we can really up-level how we're managing our chapter houses today. But let's also address the elephant in the room. How do we actually afford increasingly costly housing projects? And today our capacity is pretty limited, frankly. But we do have really great loan programs, and they support small-scale improvements well. And we have a great partner in the Phi Kappa Tau Foundation for fundraising. But we still have some gaps, and so we're looking to take a smarter approach. First off is improving our loan programs to make them simpler and clear and more accessible to your chapters. But that still won't fully bridge the gap, and so we're exploring a potential national housing ownership option. And this is something that dozens of other fraternities and sororities have found success with and call their National Housing Corporation. Such a program could serve your chapter in 2 key ways. First, provide a full-service way to manage and sustain existing houses, plus secondly, using our national scale to fund new acquisitions and major renovations. It will be an additional and optional tool in our tool belt. So we're studying this idea carefully, and we want your feedback on it, but this could be a really powerful step to take housing in Phi Tau to the next level. And the last question, as we grow our housing footprint, we face a final essential question, which is, how do we protect what we're building? And that begins with our insurance. So we're reviewing our current insurance programs to find areas to make them more equitable and affordable and provide better protection for you. But the bigger work lies in strengthening our governance. And so today, our national housing resources are kind of fragmented. They're kind of all over the place. And it was well-intentioned, and it served its purpose in the past, but it's also caused some confusion and risk and other issues. And so we're moving towards an umbrella structure to oversee our national housing and real estate activity. What does that mean for you? It means our housing programs will become simpler for you to work with, offer more tools and support for your chapter, and unlock additional resources that you can tap into when you need the most. Because if we're serious about building something that lasts and unlocking exciting new possibilities in housing, we need to establish the right foundation. So while parts of our overall housing strategy are still taking shape, key building blocks are falling into place. And so I'm proud today to share an initial step in the modern, transparent, and integrated approach our housing future demands, and that's 5 Points Property Group. The National Council established 5 Points Property Group, which is inspired by the 5 points of the Star of Phi Kappa Tau, and reflecting our multidimensional approach to housing resources. In the months ahead, we'll begin organizing our housing activities under this new umbrella, creating a unified platform to manage, protect, and grow. You'll be hearing more about it soon, but today I just want you to know we're turning vision into action for a stronger and smarter future for Phi Tau. Because housing's been always more than just your structures. It's been a place for living out our mission, for permanence. And for many campuses, it's a prerequisite for our long-term success. And this is our opportunity to finally capitalize on that. So let's strengthen our brotherhood and lead the way in the area of housing. Let's get excited about it. Thank you, brothers.
Another 2 years has gone by, and what has been inspiring over the last couple of years is the number of chapters that have had historical milestones. And so we wanted just to spend a few minutes with you this morning celebrating these chapters and their longevity. And so what we wanted to do is just quickly recognize those chapters. And so if you are from a chapter that's recognized, we would love for you to stand, and so we can just celebrate you for the different historical milestones. I know that Brother McCrum and myself and other volunteers have traveled to different parts of the country celebrating all the anniversaries that have happened in the last couple of years, and it's been a lot of fun. I know I can speak for going down to the Beta Z chapter of the University of Georgia. They had a just blowout special event to really celebrate their 75th anniversary. And so these are the things that really promote the spirit of brotherhood and the excitement about chapter anniversaries. And so we wanted to take a formal time here at our convention just to recognize all those milestones. So starting at 10 years, and if your chapter is shown up here, I'll name them off, and then if you could proudly stand up, and then we can clap for everybody all at the very end. So for 10 years, we've got Zeta Epsilon at Lynchburg, Zeta Zeta at Illinois Springfield, Zeta Eta at Alabama, and Zeta Theta at North Texas, Zeta Iota at Indiana Kokomo, and Zeta Kappa at Kenyon. Any representatives there? Please stand up. Congratulations. Those chapters in the last couple of years that are celebrating 25 years, we have Epsilon Upsilon at St. Louis University and Epsilon Phi at Indiana State. Chapters celebrating the golden anniversary of 50 years, we have Delta Nu at Wright State, Delta Z at Cleveland State, Delta Omicron at Texas Pan American. Congratulations to those chapters. Moving on to the Diamond Jubilee, we have several chapters in this category. We've got Beta Epsilon at Southern Mississippi, Beta Zeta at New Mexico State. They will be returning as a chapter this academic year. Beta Eta at New Mexico, Beta Theta recently chartered at University of Kansas, Beta Iota Florida State, Beta Kappa Oklahoma State, Beta Lambda at Indiana, Beta Mu at Kent State. Oh, but there's more. Beta Nu at San Diego State, Beta Z at the University of Georgia, Beta Omicron, University of Maryland, Beta Pi, Middlebury, Beta Rho, UCLA, also another chapter coming back to campus, and Beta Sigma at Idaho State. Congratulations to those chapters for 75 years. Chapters that are celebrating 100 years in the last couple of years. We've got a good lineup of chapters here. Phi chapter at Bethany, Chi chapter at North Carolina State, Psi chapter at the University of Colorado, Omega chapter at Wisconsin, Alpha Alpha at Michigan State, Alpha Beta at New York University. Well, there's more, sorry, there's more. Alpha Gamma at the University of Delaware, Alpha Delta at Case Western, and Alpha Epsilon at Kansas State. Congratulations to those chapters for 100 years. If your chapter in the next couple of years is having a historical anniversary, we want to know about it. We want to know if you're hosting and planning an event for your chapter, because we'd love to be a part of that. We'd love to help advertise it and promote it. So, and if you don't know when your chapter is chartered, I'm sure we can make sure we can let you know about that as well. But these are really, really wonderful times for brothers to reconnect and relive their college experience. And I think it's a great way to celebrate. So please, I'd encourage you to let us know if you're making plans and headways to celebrate your chapter. We want to be a part of it and celebrate with you. Another brand new thing that's coming out, we have seen our branding really rise, meaning that our chapters are really utilizing the Phi Tau store to be able to buy apparel and materials for recruitment and the whole 9 yards. And so we've been really excited about how our marketplace has been operating, how our chapters are using the marketplace and the Phi Tau store to be able to promote and advertise our strong and great brotherhood, typically on their chest and in their apparel. And so one of the new things, and I've been pushing, for those who don't know, we actually utilize a company. Many years ago, there was a company that started helping us control and manage our trademarks. And so in doing that, we've got a full partner in Affinity Partners, and they have helped us to kind of take our branding to the next level. And so a couple of years ago, I said to them, you know, I think it's awesome that I look at all these alumni events that happen and guys who come back for tailgates and football games and all this stuff, and they're just wearing with pride their Georgia stuff, their Jayhawks stuff. And I also know that they just ooze with pride about being Phi Taus. Let's just put those together. And so, introduced to this convention, we are now moving in the realm of being able to co-brand all of the apparel for our alumni and for our undergraduates to be able to legally wear your college gear and also celebrate your chapter and your national fraternity as a part of this. And so this is a new product available starting in the marketplace now. Mississippi State happens to be the first campus that they've been able to contract on this, and so you'll see co-branding that happens all across this, and this is going to grow like gangbusters. I really believe that this is going to be a lot of fun as we promote and celebrate not only your alma maters, but also in celebrating being Phi Taus. And so this is just a new product featuring that I think that you will find and our alumni will find as a really added value to membership. And so we look forward to this strategic initiative really growing. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all are aware this is a really fun new adventure, and I look forward to seeing how this will continue to grow the Phi Tau brand along with your alma maters. I'd now like to introduce National President Michael McCrum to introduce our next thing. Next thing.
All right. Good morning, brothers. All right. We're here. Let's roll into the next thing. We're going to hear now a committee report I want to give a little background of what this was about. In the 23 convention, it was raised, a resolution was raised, signed by, sponsored by past national presidents to form a committee to reevaluate, look closer at our Constitution and statutes to see to the extent to which we should think about modifying provisions, reorganizing it in a better way, a more organized way. And so pursuant to that resolution, once I was elected, I got with Brother Vice President Loomis, and we started talking about, well, who would be a good chair for this particular committee. We were talking and how we agreed that it should encompass very experienced Phi Taus who have a sense of history of our fraternity, the ups, the downs, the variations of the amendments, those kinds of things. We wanted to have a different broad spectrum from where they're coming from, their level of experience. We ultimately decided to recommend to the council to chair the committee was Steve Hartman. He served as CEO of our fraternity for a number of years, still works in the Greek system, and so we proposed that name to the National Council. He was unanimously approved by the council. And then we started thinking about with Brother Hartman as to who should serve on this committee. Brother Loomis and I were thinking, okay, in getting broad spectrum, how about if we get a couple past national presidents who may not necessarily agree with each other on all issues, so they could provide some balance to each other. And so the names Greg Holland and Mike Davila came up, so we recommended that to Brother Hartman. He embraced that. We also talked about, well, there's some other brothers, experienced brothers. Do we have one that works right now in the Greek system for his university, an experienced brother? Do we have another brother who's served at different levels from a national standpoint, both as maybe domain director or other type on committees before? Do we have a brother that has been in Phi Tau forever, but not necessarily working at the national level, but has extensive experience as a local level, working on BOGs and housing corporations and graduate councils? And so in that analysis, we came up with the names of Steve Ruprecht, Brian Breitholtz, and Ross Stonecipher, who fit that bill to form what eventually came a 6-man committee. Brother Hartman embraced that, loved it, approved it, and so we asked those brothers to serve, and they stepped up. And since then, they've been working extensively with Brother Arnold. I know that I sat in many, many meetings. They've been meeting every other week for the last year and a half, working ungodly hours on this thing, reviewing industry practices. They're going to tell you what they did, what they wound up with. We have here today Brother Mike Davila and Brother Brian Breitholtz, both of which served on this committee and worked an incredible number of hours. So, brothers, will you come on up and tell us what it's about?
We don't like awkward silence. Brian asked where to stand. I said right next to me. So, well, good morning, brothers. It's good to see you all. Great to be back. This is convention 15 for me, so I've been doing this for a while. My first one was in D.C. back in 1995. Brian's probably been around a while as well. So, really pleased to be able to have this opportunity to serve on this committee over the last couple of years. And as Brother McCrum mentioned, we met essentially every other week for about a year and a half of the last 2 years. I was part of the process 2 years ago in Las Vegas, along with other past national presidents, most notably past President Bill Masak from our Florida State chapter, who helped to put together the resolution that was adopted unanimously on the floor at that point in time. And then this committee came together under the President's leadership, and we're really pleased to be able to put together this process over the last couple of years. Just sort of walking through what we did initially, we wanted to benchmark against what other national and in some cases international fraternities and chapters in Canada that are the best in the industry have done in terms of operations and management and organization. And so we took a look at a handful of those, I think 6 or 8 initially, and sort of pulled together everything from their governing documents, their constitutions, their statutes, their operating documents to figure out how do organizations that really run well function over time. And one that has stood out for me over time is actually meeting just 75 miles down the road in Tampa right now at their national convention. That's Sigma Phi Epsilon. They're an organization that was founded only 5 years before Phi Kappa Tau, and for many years, for many decades, sort of moved along through a similar process that we did in terms of size and scope and number of chapters. And about 25 years ago, they made a decision to really change their organization, their business operations, to try to advance in a meaningful way. Today, they have over 200 active chapters around the country. They have over 14,000 undergraduate members. That's about 10,000 more than we have. And a bunch of other things that have helped them move in a really good direction and to be one of the benchmark national fraternities that we took a look at. So that was the process that we went through. We pulled all of these things into a matrix, and then ultimately decided on 3 focus areas that we wanted to take a look at within our governing documents. I think these are on the, maybe I can just click. Yeah, so these are the focus areas that we ended up identifying. Oops, not touching anything. Governance and elections, breadth of authority, and the disciplinary statute, which was quite a mess in the organizational documents. And what we discovered in all of these is that, as was mentioned yesterday evening, I think by President McCrum in his opening remarks here, a lot of these elements are really sort of strewn across the different documents, not organized well, very confusing. Really the last major time that we had a document rewrite in terms of these governing documents was 1936. There was an effort in 1989, I understand that's just a few years before I joined the organization, to do some updates as well, but really the underlying fundamental governing document for the organization dates back to 1936. Out of date with a lot of practices for organizations that are really well organized today. So these are the areas that we identified. We then broke into pairs among the 6 of us. So governance and elections, Brothers Holland and Stonecipher worked that area. Breadth of authority was Brother Ruprecht and me, and then discipline was Brother Breitholtz and Brother Hartman. And we decided to just really do a deep dive into each of those areas to try to figure out how to sort of re-vector the way that we do things in the organization. We'll walk through each of these in turn. So for these items, we found a bunch of different areas that are really better run, better organized than other organizations. And I'm not going to go through them one by one. We'll offer ourselves throughout the course of the next 24 hours here until we have a more substantive discussion on the floor with one another about this. But these are the areas that we took a look at in the area of elections. Some of these will come up specifically in areas that we've offered in our document. Others will come up in the form of additional amendments that have been offered by graduate or resident councils from around the country as we get into that process tomorrow. For breadth of authority, this was really an area where we found a lot of confusion in the governing documents. One area that we've noted here is general affairs of the fraternity. What exactly does that mean? It's a term of art that's used in the documents that isn't really well defined. Confusion over not only over what these things are, but over what they do and who has authority over them. Graduate councils, boards of governors, resident councils, housing corporations. So you'll see recommended changes in the Constitution and statutes for nomenclature that redefine and really rename what these things are. By custom and tradition around this organization, resident council, what do we all normally call a resident council? The chapter, right? So we've moved in the direction of using language that is just ordinarily and customarily used within the organization. Board of Governors is also a sort of a term of art within Phi Tau world that we're recommending a change on to a chapter advisory board. It's what it is, it's what it does, it's more understandable to lay people and even to members of the organization, and so forth. Graduate councils. There are very few chapters in the organization that have a functioning graduate council at all, much less one that truly functions well. Our guys from Phi chapter are somewhere out here, and old man Heilmeyer's around here somewhere. But the Phi chapter is perhaps the best organized graduate council in the country. They have a meeting every year. I've been to some of their anniversaries over the years, including the centennial just recently. They take it really seriously. They've set up a separate 501c3 similar to the foundation to actually raise money for their men, to send them to events like these and other learning opportunities around the country. They function really well. That is the exception that proves the rule. Most of our chapters don't even really have a functional graduate council. They have a board of governors that effectively serves in lieu of, or there's just not an organization that really functions at all. And yet technically there are two councils that comprise a chapter, right? The graduate council and the resident council. The graduate council technically oversees the board of governors, but if it doesn't exist, how exactly does that work? So a lot of these things were what we tried to untangle, and obviously the last point there, BOG authority over resident councils. This is something we're all more familiar with, but even in those cases, there are boards of governors that are not fully staffed. It's part of the domain program that has been sort of on and off in recent years, not particularly effectively run. The domain program used to be a lot more organized and effectively run in terms of overseeing our boards of governors and helping with recruitment in that area. So I've spent a little more time here because this is the area that I dove into a bit more. I'm going to ask Brian to talk on the next issue here, since he was paired off to talk through the disciplinary statutes.
It's a pleasure to be here, brothers. My first convention when I was here, I had a lot more hair, so it tells you what Phi Kappa Tau does to you.
I was taller too.
It'll beat you down too, but we keep coming back, you know. Love this fraternity. What Mike alluded to, as well as a number of us have had experiences personally with other organizations as well. So as much as my involvement with Phi Kappa has been on the chapter level and the national level, and working with Beta chapter, Alpha chapter, and so forth, Alpha Phi chapter, Beta Mu chapter, I also spent a dozen plus years as the Alpha chapter advisor for Beta Theta Pi, and about 10 years as a chapter advisor for SIGEP as well. So I just share that as we bring different perspectives to this process. And you would think a year and a half was plenty of time, and frankly, as much as we enjoyed each other's company and debating a lot of these issues, we probably could have gone on for another year. So discipline is an example, of that. The proposed changes are really kind of going in line with what Mike said, is looking at where there were some inconsistencies and making those changes. But in the future, I think we need to look a little bit further, and we didn't go into this, but I would recommend in the future we look at, when you're looking at discipline, right now the Constitution statutes look at individuals. Better, clearer processes when it comes to chapters, and what is the difference between the executive offices versus the national board in terms of what's going on with discipline. Additionally, where does this play when a university is involved in discipline? So you're dealing with multiple fronts when it comes to individual discipline and chapter discipline. But for the most part, when it came to our work, we were looking at clearing up some of the language. And trust me, throughout this process, there was more of it than you would think, because our approach as a fraternity over the years has been to look at a problem and come up with a fix. But when you came up with that fix, we didn't look about how does this actually fit into the current Constitution and bylaws, and that's where a lot of the inconsistency came up that we looked at. So unfortunately, I've heard all kinds of rumors about these great schemes and plans that we were trying to do. No, we were just trying to clean it up and make it work best for the brothers.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, so I think that's the bulk of our portion of the presentation. I think, Matt, are you walking through some of the other items, or somebody else, like the specific proposals, or did you want us to do that also? I saw this deck a little while ago. Okay, we can press through, but the point of this slide is we'll be here, happy to answer questions that you all have one-on-one or however you'd like to do it. But let me underscore one point that Brother Breitholtz just made, because over the years, and I've been a member of the organization for since 1993, so do the math on that. I guess 32 years. There are a lot of folks in the organization who like to make noise and generate a lot of detraction in terms of what's actually going on. And the process that was put together here is one that was authorized by the National Convention in Las Vegas 2 years ago. It's a process that was well organized. as Brian indicated, there was vigorous, robust debate on all the topics that we were given purview over within the governing documents. And so it was a group, I think, that when President McCrum put it together, he recognized that there would be dialogue and would be debate and would be civil disagreement on a lot of the things that we covered. And there was. I mean, there were points in time where, I'll just say for my part, and folks who know my personality know I like to push forward on things and get to a state of excellence and a good outcome. And we were sort of regularly pulled back and regulated in terms of being able to move through the dialogue, perhaps as promptly as some of us would have wanted to. And as Brian indicated, we could have taken another year or 2 years or forever working our way through this. But ultimately, we had to come to a final analysis, put together a new version of these documents that we believe is better organized, long overdue in terms of the updates, and really just in the main works to clean up language that has gotten increasingly messy with the accretion of different changes over the years without really thinking our way through how does this year's change interact with other changes that were made 10, 20, 80 years ago. And so this was a chance for us to really sort of chip back all the paint to the bare metal and start over again, while not throwing away the institutional memory and the background. And I'll take a backseat to no one in terms of being a traditionalist and a conservative in terms of protecting the organization's heritage. And that was something I pointed out very early was, do we really need to do all of this at all? And the reality that we arrived at was that we did need to, we do need to. And so we hope that this will really serve as an opportunity, this convention, to be a landmark convention that allows each member who's on the floor of this place, whether as a voting delegate, an alternate, an observer, to have a role in this process, to have a role in this conversation, this dialogue that will take place over the next couple of days. So I encourage each of you to participate in a robust way as we have this discussion. But just know that the process that occurred here was one that was and is above board and had the best interests of this brotherhood foremost in our minds as we went through the process. So with that, I think we can press, or however you want to do this, yeah. Okay, so this is the part where I become like a spear sponge, probably, for all the which I'm used to. Yeah, it happens a lot. My day job, I'm a legislator in Ohio, so I'm used to this. Okay, so as I indicated here already, really, and I've probably covered most of the points on this, just having been embedded in this for the last couple of years. But again, the process here with the Constitution, many things were in the Constitution that really didn't belong in the Constitution. They belonged either in our statutes or in an operating code. And so we looked at this really from 3 levels. And if we compare it to the way that federal law works or state law works, you've got the U.S. Constitution, you've got the United States Code, and then you've got what's called the Code of Federal Regulations. We have similar things at all of our states as well. So the Constitution being really the overarching governing document, the charter essentially for the organization, the statutes having more detail in them in terms of typically how officers are elected, how the organization runs and interacts with itself, and then below that, operational things that can be determined really at the level of the executive offices. So again, a bit of a dividing line between the elected organization and the staff organization that carries out the duties that are prescribed in the Constitution and statutes. That's really what the effort was overall in terms of trying to get this reorganized. Again, an effort for completeness and clarity in the Constitution. We also found in the statutes that as things were done over the years, the naming wasn't always done well. We've redone the numbering so that there's actually a sequence for future amendments that can be tucked in, that sort of thing, so it's not confusing anymore. I referred to the nomenclature update earlier, so just specifically here the items. We've tried to professionalize, I think, in some ways, and treat the national organization more like a business. We look, I think, at the national organization or the national chapter, as some folks call it, as a chapter writ large. Brothers, when you stop and think about what this organization really is nationally, it's a nonprofit 501c7 organization that has responsibility nationwide for a multi-million-dollar budget. That's not a small responsibility. And so the way that we've looked at the board for the organization is as a board. They're a board of fiduciaries that are responsible to all of us, and some of us have served in these roles, and are responsible for the oversight and the financing of the organization. It's a nonprofit board of directors. That's ultimately what it is. Let's call it that. Resident council. Nobody really knows what that is anymore. It's a chapter. It's the term we all use for it. Let's use the term we use for it. Graduate councils. They generally don't even exist within the organization, although according to our long-standing structure, every chapter has one. Every alumnus at a university or college around the country knows exactly what an alumni association is. This will move us in the direction of being able to actually, I think, have more folks involved in the organization, potentially to be donors at the local level. We've worked hard with the foundation over the years to have chapter education grant funds, CEGs, to get folks to invest in restricted funds at their own chapter level. We all joined a chapter initially, and then we learned later that we're part of this big national brotherhood that stretches coast to coast. But ultimately, our primary affinity, even for those of us who are big exponents of the national organization, our primary affinity remains with our local chapter. I shall be loyal to my college and my chapter, says our creed. And then Board of Governors, again, a term of art in the organization. Chapter Advisory Board is really functionally what that entity does. So again, just an effort to call it what it is. This was on the governance piece, under the piece that the Brothers Holland and Stone Cipher were organizing. And I think we run here through just different options. So in this first option, and you've all got the voter guide that was put together here very recently by Brothers McCrum and Loomis, I think primarily, which offers a flow chart, and I think a really helpful way, I was just looking at it again last night, of walking through what we will do here potentially tomorrow on the convention floor as we move through these options. But option one would essentially say all the work that was done over the last 2 years, we want still more time to take a look at this. And this is what Brian was referring to. We could have done this within the committee. I think we could do this for an interminable amount of time and never have change at all in the organization and remain where we are. But if we want to have a real opportunity to be like the SIG-Ups of the fraternity world, to have tremendous undergraduate growth, and we're seeing it obviously as the top growing fraternity in the country right now. But if we truly want to move in that direction, our structure needs to be in a place where it can facilitate and move that forward in a meaningful way. So the first thing that this convention floor will decide tomorrow is whether or not we want to punt, or whether this convention wants to actually have a meaningful dialogue in a civil way and argue our way through whether we want to make any or all of these changes. I really encourage us to go ahead and have that discussion tomorrow. A lot of effort has been put into this over the last couple of years, certainly by this group, and it's been thought about and talked about. We're great at talking about things in the organization for a long time. This is the time, in my view, for action. Short of that, we can take the next 2 years, we can put together a series of focus groups, which was envisioned, and frankly, we simply ran out of time as we were coming to the end of our process in order to pull together the focus groups around the country. But it's my hope, it's our hope, I think, as a committee, that we'll be able to have that dialogue tomorrow and see where we land on it. Should that motion pass, and essentially a motion to proceed to debate on the main items, we'll take a look at the second option. And this is related to really the structure of the National Council, or under this new terminology, the Board of Directors. I don't know how many years it's been, but it's certainly the entire time that I've been around. I've only seen a national president elected directly from the floor on one occasion, and that was my first convention in 1995, and it's because we had a number of deaths that occurred in a short period of time on the National Council, including at that time the sitting national vice president. And so another individual rolled up from that role into the president for the balance of that term, and then ended up running in his own right for a full term at that point. He didn't win that election, another fellow did, but that's the first and last time that I can recall seeing it. But it's not the only way. The way that we do it now and that way are not the only ways that this has been done over the years. We're recommending with this proposal a movement to give the National Convention more choice and more voice each time that we come together. So for as long as I've been around, and for others, we've elected a national vice president. That person then, by a vote of confidence by the National Council, at some point over the ensuing 2 years, either does or does not get the vote of confidence. Generally, that man does, and then succeeds automatically to the presidency at the next convention. We have no voice over whether or not that happens, other than in the form of approving all the actions that were taken by the National Council over the previous 2 years. Most of the time, conventions don't even realize that when we adopt all of the motions and actions that were taken by the council over the previous biennium, we don't even recognize that in that vote, we're approving the ascension of the national vice president formally to the presidency. So this provides an option for that. Secondarily, it provides an option, as Brother McCrum mentioned last night, for the national president, if the next convention deems that that guy's done a really good job, to stand for election once again. I don't think any of us who've served in the role want to do it for 25 years like Brother Maxwell did. That sounds like a very painful process at this point in our time, but perhaps somebody wants to do it for 4 years. And if the convention determines that ought to be the case, then that can go in front of the convention. And so it removes the vote of confidence for the national vice president, and it again puts that matter in front of the convention for either for a re-election of the sitting president or for somebody new to do it. And under this option number 2, it leaves councilor roles at 6 years. Let me just mention at this point that part of the dialogue that occurred within the committee on governance and election matters was the obligation that we place on volunteers to serve for a 6-year period of time on the National Council, the National Board of Directors. That is a significant time commitment for folks, and in the old days when you became national vice president, that was really 6 more years, because until 2010, the immediate past national president also continued to serve on the National Council. So if you got on at the beginning, did your 6 years, and then got elected VP, you were looking at a 12-year volunteer obligation to serve on the national board. For those in the room who serve in other volunteer capacities, and for the rest of us who can imagine what that's like, that's a big time commitment. It's a big financial commitment. Most of what we do when we serve in these roles is done out of pocket. And if you do it the right way, as Mike has done over the last couple of years, you basically travel just about every weekend of the 104 weeks that you serve in this role. It's an enormous commitment. We determined that that might be too long of a period to serve. And again, we benchmarked against other organizations to see how long they do it. Some have 6, and some have 4. This proposal still leaves it at 6, but there is an option to make some shifts. You can see here, again, under the current voting structure, there are 8 members. We elect 2 national counselors every 2 years in staggered 6-year terms, and then the VP and the president. So 8 under the current structure. Under the new structure, you'd have an elected national vice president, and then 6 elected national counselors, from whom the national vice president would be picked by the members of that committee, of the council. One of the things that we tried to get to here, and all of us who have served in the role of national president over the years, I think, have recognized that sometimes you get a national vice president who's not aligned with the vision of the president, and you serve together one way or the other. You make the best of it. I had a great national president who I was privileged to serve with, Rick Keltner. I think he feels the same way about me, hopefully in the opposite role, but it's not always the case. And so one of the ways that we wanted to try to reduce infighting on the National Council was to not give the national president a vice president who's otherwise picked. And so within this structure, the council would pick its own vice president, and the only way that that person ends up serving in the role of national president is in the event of a death or some other kind of calamity where the elected national president cannot continue serving in that role. Otherwise, the next convention along the line has an opportunity to elect, again, directly a national president, either by re-election or a new person in the role. We think it's a better way to operate in terms of governance. And then item 4 under option 2, the implementation plan proposed. So I think this just refers to converting to the new structure. So the 7-person structure with 6 counselors and an elected chairman or president. Okay, these, again, this just walks us through, I think, more of the elements of the Constitution here. So Article B being governance pieces that we've talked about probably longer than you've wanted to hear about already. Article C, membership items. So again, really high-level matters within the organization. Article D, how the organization is organized at the national level. And again, just a lot of cleanup language here. A lot of it moved into the statutory piece rather than leaving it in the Constitution. We had a lot of executive offices, or probably still called national headquarters, elements in the Constitution that really better belong in the statutes. I think membership in other organizations refers to things like membership in the North American Interfraternity Conference, for example. New language in Article D. So again, this Article D is this body, the National Convention. Again, more updates for clarity. One change that I think there's a separate constitutional amendment on that came from Brother Nelson's chapter, I think, Beta Epsilon at Southern Miss, is the question of whether to remove past national presidents from their voting rights. So under the current version of the Constitution, which has been in place for a long time, past national presidents have what's sort of colloquially referred to as the VFL, the vote for life, on the floor of the National Convention. And it's a vote on everything other than constitutional amendments. And again, this has been in place for, I think, at least a couple of decades now, again, at least as long as I've been around. One of our efforts here to try to restore more voice and more vote to the actual representation of the chapters, the resident councils and the graduate councils. There's not that many of us that are around anymore. I think there's like 10 or 11 living past national presidents, but was to take that vote away. So again, that'll be a separate matter that gets discussed, but under the version that we've proposed, it would remove it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And Brian indicated that as we were benchmarking against other national and international fraternities, that was not something that we found in their governing documents. So again, trying to move in the direction of best practices. No material changes to either the undergraduate or graduate voting rights on the floor, and the rules of order were clarified in this article as well. I think there is an order of convention that actually is prescribed in the current Constitution. This just clarifies some of those things a little bit. Article E is the national officer, so we've talked a bit about that already. You can take a look at the two options that we have on that we've discussed. Article F is the subordinate chapters, so that's all the several chapters that comprise the national organization. Again, part of this fell under the breadth of authority piece that Stephen and I worked our way through. We've also added new language for some liability issues. There's always a question among volunteers who serve in the organization. Folks who serve at the national level have D&O insurance, director and officers insurance. Some questions about whether or not that applies at the chapter level. Do I, as a Board of Governors chairman or a member of a Board of Governors, have liability coverage? What's the legal status? What is the authority? How does it all fall under the national organization? We've clarified that with new language, again, benchmarking against others. There are some new items here added for on judicial matters, ritual, and miscellaneous items. You can take a look at how we've crafted that. But again, this is a much skinnier document in terms of a constitution than we've been familiar with for a long time, and much of the more granular information has moved appropriately into the statutory elements. And then just some general provisions here. No material changes to this section. We moved, we run a fiscal year that starts July 1st, which is the case for a lot of corporations and nonprofits around the country typically, so that's been moved to the statutes out of the Constitution. It's really an operational matter. And then there's an audit item here as well. Amendments, right? Every Constitution has a process for how it can be amended. That's what Article K is. And again, it cleans up the language on how that actually happens. It can happen only in convention, and it has to be noticed, and this has been the case for a long time. It has to be noticed publicly to the body at least 90 days before. This National Council took, I think, a very appropriate step this time, and also making sure that statutory changes were noticed at least 90 days in advance. This was the most, I think, detailed governance process that I've seen in the years that I've been involved with the organization for providing accountability and transparency and open notice to the organization in terms of the items that would be covered at this convention. So hopefully that's been helpful to everybody in terms of review before arriving here. And then, as I've mentioned a few times, a lot of the more granular, detailed items were appropriately moved over to the statutes. And again, much of it was, in the current documents, was really repetitive language and confusing language, and in some ways, I think, even conflicting language between the governing documents. So again, it moves that language over there on all of the items that are listed here. And again, a number of items move from the Constitution into the statutes. So those are the constitutional and statutory changes that we'll take a look at tomorrow. And then, as is the right of any council, the National Council, any graduate council, or any resident council, by the 90-day deadline before convention convenes, we received a number of recommendations from councils around the country. This is Brother Keltner's chapter out at Sac State, Gamma Iota Graduate Council. So they have proposed, and again, only if the new Constitution is approved, their change is to not only retain the vote of past national presidents on the floor of convention, but actually to amend that to expand the vote of past national presidents to include constitutional amendments. So again, under the provision that's been in place for years, past national presidents have a permanent vote on the convention floor on all matters except constitutional amendments. So this would actually move in the opposite direction of the one that the committee has recommended and would not only retain the vote on everything else that's been in place, but would expand it to include really all matters on the convention floor, including amendments to the Constitution. So that's a matter for the group's consideration. This is Beta Epsilon chapter. This is past President Nelson's chapter down at Southern Mississippi. In this case, again, only if the new amendment, the new Constitution and option 2 are adopted, the proposal here is to make the to still have the national president, vice president elected by the convention, and then it changes or essentially leaves the number of members of the National Council at 8. So as I mentioned before, it's 8 today, 6 national councilors chosen every 2 years with staggered terms, the national vice president chosen by the convention, and the president who becomes president by essentially automatic ascension or vote of confidence by the National Council. This would leave it so that the national vice president is still elected, and I think under this provision still allows the president to be elected separately as well. So essentially everybody would be elected by the National Convention, and it doesn't put in place either the situation you have now where the VP rolls up or where the VP would be chosen just by the council. Beta Z, this is past President Crane's chapter, just offering an indication of where some of these have come from and who's served there over the years. Nice to see Brother Ragsdale here from the grad council for that chapter. This legislation is similar to what we've talked about within the committee, and it would change the term of office for national counselors from 6 years to 4. Again, in alignment with a lot of other national and international fraternities' best practices to have shorter terms of office for volunteers who serve in these positions, to allow for more people to serve in the roles, and perhaps just even to be an encouragement for folks to step forward and serve in these roles if they think that 2 years is too much beyond 4 years. And again, this is crafted under the current Constitution, or would apply under the new Constitution as well. So that'll be a separate voting matter. And I think we've covered our areas. It's probably best not to try to tackle questions from the podium, but Brother Breitholtz and I will be around for the balance of our time here. Please seek us out. Happy to answer questions, work through questions of confusion, and provide more clarity. But again, to President McCrum, on behalf of the committee and our chairman, Steve Hartman, our former CEO, Brian and I really appreciate this opportunity to serve in this new way for the organization. It's been a tremendous privilege over the last couple of years to work through all of this. I think all of us, even those of us who are governance nerds, learned a little bit more about how the organization is organized and ways that we can make ourselves more efficient and effective as Phi Kappa Tau. So thank you, gentlemen.
Excited about it. We'll see how you guys feel about it. First of all, you know, when I was elected a couple years ago, one of the issues that had come up is, as I was talking to folks before the election and even after, is the issue of domain directors. And there was a lot of consternation, a lot of bad feeling that we had had such a successful program of domain directors that had led to leaders for our fraternity. And then along the years, the number had lessened. And then even after it was lessened, that in the last several years before I was elected, it's like it wasn't even being implemented fully, it wasn't being embraced, wasn't operating as it had always had intended to be and always had done. And so there was a lot of ill feeling about that, like, wait, man, this is a great program. Volunteer alumni coming, visiting the chapters, having geographic chapters under their watch and giving advice and counsel and whatnot. And so I, at that convention, said, you know what, this is an important issue, and I'm going to do my best to look into it to see what the deal is, man. Why are we not using our domain directors in an effective way? Should we increase the number? What should we do about it? And so as a result of that conversation that's been going on the last couple of years, that I've had a lot of conversations with Brother Arnold, a CEO, with Brother Loomis, with other members of the council. We're just talking about what can we do. I know Brother Arnold met with some domain directors a couple times to talk about that program. And so what we're doing, what it's evolved into, and I mentioned it yesterday, is creating some new initiatives, all right? And just so you undergrads know this domain director, because you may not even be aware of it, frankly, I mean, because it hasn't impacted you like it's impacted some of the older guys in our fraternity. The domain director, it was started in our 8th National Convention in 1919, is what I'm told. The domain director program been a cornerstone of chapter support. For over a century, domain directors served as the bridge between the national fraternity and the local chapters, offering mentorship, accountability, operational guidance, and their contributions have helped shape generation of chapter leaders and strengthen our fraternity's presence across the country. So it makes sense that we don't ever want to get rid of a program that's operated so well and offered such support and guidance to our chapter out in the field, all right? But life has evolved. Fraternity operations have evolved. Alumni volunteer expectations and availability have evolved. And so too was the thinking is maybe we ought to rethink of how we do this in a more effective way. And so over the past year plus, the fraternity, the operations of our arm of our fraternity, our executive office, has conducted an in-depth review of all of our volunteer structure, our alumni volunteer structure, analyzing feedback from member surveys. You guys get that surveys, and y'all are really good about providing your feedback from undergrads as well as alumni. We've looked at historical records, industry best practices of whether other successful fraternities are doing, as well as seeking input from our National Alumni Retention Committee. And so the findings, there was a common denominator. The findings were very, very clear. Alumni volunteer roles are supremely important. They provide oversight, but the problem is under that other program, we're having trouble finding more and more alumni volunteers because it requires an undefined outcome. There's a heavy time commitment that has been associated or tied with that domain director that makes it real difficult for a lot of alumni to commit to such an aggressive and broad and long-standing commitment. It became clear under all of that research of the surveys and everything else that it was increasingly unsustainable for many alumni to do that, to balance their careers and families and other obligations, other volunteers that they're doing. And so what is now come to the deal, and so one of the proposed amendments, as I mentioned yesterday, was to remove the domain director of the Constitution. And then I heard feedback like, whoa, wait a minute, what are you going to do? That's a great program. And said, well, hold on. We're not just dumping the baby with the bathwater out here. We're now going to do something a little bit different. So the domain director program, for you undergrads that aren't familiar with it, it was defined by a geographical area, right? The domain. An alumni was given a geographical area was told over a long term to work with the chapters in that area to provide guidance and mentorship. Great, sounded great, and it's worked great for decades, right? Except more recently, and it's died away. And so here, the strategy then is to say, okay, how can we hold on to the legacy of how good that program is, but do it in a different way where that'll encourage more alumni to volunteer and be involved, all right, at which we can still keep the concept of getting alumni to come in, specialists to come in, experts in fraternity operations, different issues, to come in and provide that guidance. And so right now I want to introduce to you an initiative that we're going to begin that'll hopefully revitalize this whole concept of alumni involvement and volunteerism that'll support our chapters. That's what our hope is, that it'll just energize it in a different way, so that we keep all that was good about the domain director, but we address issues that were making it difficult for us to keep going. So let me show you what we're talking about, a new volunteer strategy. First of all, the creation of a position called a national chapter specialist. Now this is rooted and based on the legacy, as I said, on a successful domain director program. It's a response to member feedback, volunteer trends, and our national and local Phi Tau priorities. It's a project-based volunteer to provide input and guidance on areas of particular chapter needs. In other words, the alumni specialist here, the national chapter specialist, instead of being in charge of a domain, right, with you're doing everything, we're now going to become more flexible in that, not require such a long commitment, so now you're only maybe get more alumni volunteers to sign up and agree to do this, and also target it more specifically as to what chapters need. Some chapters need help on recruitment. Other chapters don't. They're initiating tons of guys every year, but they're not doing as well on their finance issues or their housing issues or their ritual issues. This becomes a project-based volunteer system to provide input and guidance on areas of particular chapters' needs. It's designed for experienced alumni that we want out there giving guidance and mentorship. It empowers alumni brothers to directly support chapters and BOGs. And it's a flexible commitment, and that's what we're hoping will encourage alumni to get into the fold. Guys, we need you. We need your help to mentor these young guys. And so an alumni would be assigned some operational projects that may only last a month or maybe several months, certainly not years and years and years as we were asking people to serve as domain directors. So it's a more target-centric, project-centric commitment that an alumni specialist would be asked to do. Now here's the deal. Project-centric approach that fits today's time constraints. The assignments are based on an alumni's interest, skills, and availability. And so if you have a particular expertise in an area, that's where we want to use you to target with a chapter that we know needs that particular guidance. And so the volunteers can select their focus areas and can manage their time and way to do it. The areas of support include recruitment and retention, member orientation, ritual, alumni engagement, finance, chapter operations. These are all different specific areas that we're going to try to get alumni into, saying if you are very, very interested in ritual and how our chapters are performing their rituals, such as Brother Grizzle, he loves the ritual, he embraces it. You won't find a brother that loves that more than anything. I mean, he just loves it. Brother Flick over there, he's just a finance guy that's a whiz that could just on a spot tell guys how to do their finances in a better way, much better than I ever could. And so that's what we're looking for. That's what we're thinking about as far as this national chapter specialist. And so that's the initiative is to flow from the domain director concept, all right? The second specialist on this initiative is an education faculty specialist. Well, what is that? These are mentors and educators to the next generation of fraternity leaders. They support the strategic plan. Our strategic plan is we want to reach 25% of undergraduate brothers annually through direct programming. Well, how best to do that? Do we just keep on relying on staff to lead these educational seminars or conferences? Or can we reach out and touch upon the alumni who have expertise in certain areas to lead that? Alumni brothers are facilitators. They become facilitators to deliver high-impact in-person programs according to their expertise. What does that mean? Volunteers will serve at the national or the regional or the local events. They'll lead workshops in the area of alumni volunteers' expertise. Again, we're trying to tailor it to an alumni's availability, his expertise, his skill, his interest into what that particular education program is dovetailing in. And so that's the idea. It's a ritual-based education or officer transition or leadership or men's health and well-being, professional development. These are all just different areas of that chapters that undergraduates need education programming into these things. And so one of the issues that came up is, man, we used to have at these regional conferences alumni stepping up and leading these conferences in education. That's what was told to me by several brothers. Oh, so that's brilliant. Why not do it again? We had gotten away from that. Let's return to that, and that's what this is, an education faculty specialist. So yeah, that's right. Let's do it. We've got so many talented brothers, alumni, that across the spectrum. All right, I was just talking to some young brothers this morning about their interest in pre-law. Well, I've been a lawyer for 40 years. I can talk to them about pre-law. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Let's get alumni touched into the interest and skill of that alumni to educate and help our undergrad brothers so they can move forward in a very, very real and powerful way. And so that's what these two specialist initiatives, the National Chapter Specialist as well as the Education Faculty Specialist, we're going to broadcast it out to all the alumni saying, man, we need you. We want you. We don't want the staff to just do all of this stuff. We want our alumni who are experts in the field to get involved. And so don't be worried about getting rid of the domain director program. This is now a more flexible, project-based, targeted program that we're hoping that will accomplish the same objective. And if you want to work with a chapter so that you get to know them and work on several areas, well, that's great too. Heck yeah, man. If you're willing to, you don't have to just go in and talk about finance. If you want to stick with a chapter or two to give them guidance, you know what a perfect example of this is? And we all know it. Barry Mask and his chapter. He's been talking about recruitment to that chapter in such a dynamic, beautiful way. They're doing great. Auburn's doing great. That's a perfect example of a national chapter specialist in the area of recruitment. Why don't we get Barry Mass to say, okay, Barry, you're doing a great job. You've been saying how we're not paying attention to you on the great things you're doing. You're right. You're actually right. Let's get you now into some other chapters across the country that are having problem with recruitment. All right, let's get you as a specialist and plug you in. That's what we're talking about. All right, and so that I think I'm hopeful that you guys are gonna like this and embrace it. But that's the idea between it. Okay, so here we go. Now, I don't want. When we started talking about this, I posed a question. I said, you know, this is all great. It makes sense. It's more flexible. It's you know, all the reasons that I just said. I said, but what about all the guys that served as domain directors? Have they ever been recognized? Because a lot of guys have. And a lot of guys have taken their experience level and taken it to continue their service to our brotherhood by running for office or serving on national committees or whatnot. Have they ever been recognized? They may have been recognized by their own chapter, or maybe a fire award every now and then, or that's got to change, man. We got to stand here at a convention. You guys who served as domain directors, thank you. Thank you so much you've given to our fraternity in different chapters and giving guidance and giving support. Doing that. It doesn't even adequately thank you for all that you did. Is I to everybody so that every something that we're embracing domain directors and now just transforming it into a different way. Will join me, those brothers here. Citations. So are they here? They're there? There's brothers here that have so as you look you in the face, all and they deserve a. First of all, Jack Alvinus. Where are you? Come on up, Jack. Thank you so much. Ricky Bailey, now National Counselor. Jeff Baird. Let me tell you guys what it reads. It says, Presidential Citation, in recognition and heartfelt appreciation for your invaluable contribution and unwavering dedication as a domain director. Your tireless effort in the guidance and development of our young brothers provided an invaluable impact toward their maturity, leadership, and transition into men of distinction. Thank you for your shining example of brotherhood at its highest zenith. Charlie Ball. Tell me. Okay, all right. Past national president, man. All right. PJ Best, Patrick James Best. Where are you, PJ? I know he's here at the convention. He's not here right now. Right? Okay. Jeremy Batika? Batika, okay, all right, sorry. Jeremy, are you here? Okay. Scott Brown. All right, Ray Carlos. Scott Conroe. Ray Cox. Mike Davila. Phil Frandina. right, Greg Hamar, past president. You here? Andy Proof. Michael French. Sasha Konevsky. Rick Keltner.
I'm feeling on top of the world.
Stephen King.
I may never touch the ground. It may not be my birthday, but I just want to celebrate.
Gary Klingberg. David Lipinski.
There's magic coursing throughout my veins. I don't want it to stop. I feel invincible in every way. I'ma give it all I got. It may not be my birthday, but I just wanna celebrate.
James, Josh, Lewis, JJ.
'Cause it's a good day, good life. I just wanna celebrate all night.
Greg Halmar, past president.
There's nothing like feeling alive. There's nothing like feeling alive. I just want to celebrate.
Michael Loomis, our vice president.
'Cause it's a good day, good life. I just want to celebrate all night.
Steve Nelson, past president.
I just want to celebrate all night.
Marty Shendo. Alan Shaw. Warren Skender. Is he here? He's not here yet. Tommy Tinker. Not here yet? To the undergraduate brothers, I hope you feel the sense of devotion that's in this room for Phi Tau and for this brotherhood. Through all these brothers' commitment and how they continue to serve in different roles in the foundation, national council, committees. They continue the life of brotherhood. I hope you are inspired as I am about these gentlemen. And so let's give them all a great, great round of applause. Come on. Thank you, brothers. All right. As you guys know, we're going to be having elections tomorrow. Right now, there's a opening for vice president that we'll be electing, and there are 2 council seats that need to be filled. And there's brothers that have gone through the nominations process and have stepped up and are running for that office. We know that especially a lot of the undergrads may not know these guys by name, but you might have questions that you want to pose to these guys before you make a decision on who to vote for, right? And so what we thought might be a good idea is to have them stand up, and so you can look at their face, and so that you can walk up to them in the hallway and say, hey, what do you think? What's your idea about this or that? So that's what I'd like to do right now. For our vice president slot, there have been 3 folks that have gone through the process and have either been slated by the nominating committee or are authorized to run for office. So will the 3 candidates for vice president please stand up and raise your hands so the brothers can see who you are, look at your face, and if they have a question. All right. Same thing for the 2 council slots. There are several brothers that are running and have put their name up, have gone through the process to apply and put their names out for election. So will the brothers who are running for one of the council seats please stand up and raise your hand so the brothers can see your face? All right, thank you, brothers. All right, Matt, you're up.
Today's been a lot about celebration and remembering those that are deeply dedicated to our brotherhood. And one other area we thought was special was looking at who was coming to convention and who has either just maybe received a historical milestone of their initiation or will be coming up very shortly. And so it seemed most appropriate to take a look at brothers who have given their life's devotion to this fraternity and just recognize them for this historical achievement of an anniversary. And so we want to recognize a few men that are celebrating 50 years of membership. We have 5 here today. I believe they're all 5 here today and have either met the 50-year mark or will be very shortly here in 2025. So we thought it'd be really fun just to celebrate these brothers and these milestones. And so the first gentleman up is Jim Keffer. He's already been on stage already, but let's have David Lipinski come on up. Brother Steve Nelson from Beta Epsilon Chapter. Now, Mike, these couple here coming up are a little special to you, I think, because we provided you with your 50-year last night. Let's bring up Matthew Raven from the Gamma Psi chapter. And our last 50-year recipient, Ricky Rios from Gamma Psi Chapter at Texas State.
Tom, what your pledges or associate members are in 66? Have you got your pen yet? There you go. Tom Wilson. What chapter, Tom? There you go.
All right, congratulations to everyone on their longevity and deep devotion to our fraternity. Thank you.
All right, brothers, we now, in the spirit of brotherhood, want to move into a part of our ritual that is extremely important. We want to recognize those brothers who have passed away in our brotherhood the last 2 years since the last convention. So Brother Lipinski, can you come on up, please? As he's walking up, brothers, we're going to, unfortunately, there's 856 brothers on that list that have passed away since the last convention. What we are talking about doing, and I'm going to hand this over to Brother Lipinski because I think he can offer us some perspective and guidance on this part of our ritual. We've got the greenery here, and so he'll explain how we're going to do that process and how we're going to work through the different chapters. I do want to say, though, that this is a, rightly so, a somber part of our ritual, a somber part of our convention, that we adequately remember the brothers who've lost and are now waiting for us to join them again in chapter eternal. After this service, we will then be moving into an initiation, an honorary initiations of our ritual. And that'll happen in the next room over. So everybody here, as we participate the chapter eternal, just know that once we finish this, we'll then be released for about 15 minutes, but you're to go to the restroom, but make your way into the next room. Everybody needs to be there for the the honorary initiation, that we're going to welcome a new brother into our brotherhood. And so, Brother Lipinski, can you offer some comments on
And has the greenery been brought in? Okay. Could you bring it to this over here, to the middle? What we're going to do is I'm going to read each chapter, and then the number of people since the last convention that we have some knowledge that they've died. Now, as Brother McCrum mentioned, it's over 800. Obviously, more than that have passed since that time. It's just the way we don't always know where all of our brothers are and everything else. But I'm a very positive man, because I checked and we received over 1,700 new brothers just in this past year. So as brothers die, as brothers enter chapter eternal, more brothers come after us. And that's what it means to be a fraternity. I was honored especially to receive this 50-year pen. I'm also very happy that there's 2 men in my chapter who are also here. They're the next generation. Each of you are the next generation. We are here, brothers, now and forever. I would note in some cases the number may seem very high for a particular chapter. In some of these cases, what's happened is they've done a good research into their database and identified people. They may have not looked through the records for many years. But still, you will note that we have chapters that are very young who have already said goodbye to some of the brothers. So when I mention your chapter name, and we will be going sequentially so you would know it, I would ask you to come forward, pull out one of the greenery, and then just place it on that table that's right in front. If there's not a representative from that chapter, one of the gentlemen from the staff will take care of doing that. Again, we have many names to read, so I can't wait till each person has walked completely up here. But we will do this in a solemn and serious manner. And at the end of it, we will do the funeral ceremony itself. At that point in time, myself and our president will do the ceremony, and I will invite everybody to stand. So, to begin, Alpha, 20. Beta, 22. Gamma, 29. Delta, 6. Epsilon, 13. Zeta, 17. Eta, 16. Theta, 13. Iota, 8. Kappa, 9. Lambda, 21. Mu, 11. Nu, 10. Z, 9. Omicron 18. Pi, 6. Rho, 22. Sigma, 7. Tau, 7. Upsilon, 26. Phi, 27. Chi, 12. Psi, 7. Omega, 1. Alpha Alpha, 20. Alpha Gamma, 11. Alpha Delta, 14. Alpha Epsilon, 3. Alpha Zeta, 2. Alpha Eta, 29. Alpha Theta, 16. Alpha Iota, 4. Alpha Kappa, 10. Alpha Lambda, 35. Alpha Mu, 2. Alpha Nu, 10. Alpha Z, 2. Alpha Omicron, 11. Alpha Pi, 7. Alpha Rho, 14. Alpha Sigma, 3. Alpha Tau, 18. Alpha Upsilon, 13. Alpha Phi, 19. Alpha Chi, 12. Alpha Psi, 5. Alpha Omega, 11. Beta Alpha, 4. Beta Beta, 29. Beta Gamma, 4. Beta Delta, 3. Beta Epsilon, 9. Beta Zeta, 12. Beta Eta, 3. Beta Theta, 12. Beta Iota, 9. Beta Kappa, 12. Beta Lambda, 8. Beta Mu, 8. Beta Z, 4. Beta Omicron, 9. Beta Rho, 2. Beta Sigma, 2. Beta Tau, 17. Beta Phi, 3. Beta Chi, 12. Beta Psi, 4. Beta Omega, 8. Gamma Alpha, 7. Gamma Beta, 2. Gamma Gamma, 2. Gamma Delta, 2. Gamma Epsilon, 1. Gamma Zeta, 2. Gamma Eta, 4. Gamma Theta, 1. Gamma Iota, 2. Gamma Lambda, 1. Gamma Mu, 6. Gamma Z, 3. Gamma Omicron, 4. Gamma Pi, 2. Gamma Sigma, 1. Gamma Tau, 3. Gamma Upsilon, 3. Gamma Psi, 2. Delta Alpha, 1. Delta Beta, 2. Delta Gamma, 3. Delta Epsilon, 2. Delta Zeta, 1. Delta Kappa, 1. Delta Nu, 2. Delta Phi, 1. Delta Psi, 1. Epsilon Beta, 1. Epsilon Kappa, 1. Epsilon Sigma, 3. Epsilon Omega, 1. Zeta Beta, 1. Zeta Psi, 1. There was also 3 brothers that we were not sure what chapters, but they were brothers.
Not necessarily brothers, the 3 folks that were extremely special to the fraternity. For example, Brother Keltner's wife, Cindy, who came to so many conventions and loved our brotherhood with all her heart, and we came to love her. Her and 2 others. That's what.
Thank you. You'll notice that I called out chapters that have been closed for 60 years. That brotherhood is still our brotherhood. Sigma is that example. It doesn't matter when you became a brother, you were always a brother. It doesn't matter if your chapter is here anymore, active, you are always a brother. And that's what unites us. So I'd ask the brotherhood to please stand as we conduct the funeral service.
We have assembled here to offer the last tribute of love and honor to our brothers who have passed into the great beyond.
The silver cord is loose, the golden bowl is broken, the pitcher is broken at the fountain, and the wheel is broken at the cistern. And the spirit returneth unto God who gave it.
We mourn the breaking of these earthly ties and this loss of companionship. Another link has been severed from the fraternal chain that binds us together.
For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle be dissolved, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens.
To the sorrowing relatives and friends, we offer our deepest sympathy in this hour and all hours that follow of bereavement and loss.
The God of our fathers, whose name is everlasting, will be our God forever and forever.
The emblems which we have placed here before us with our brothers, by them we are reminded of the fragrance and the charm of our brothers' lives. These are symbolic of our fondest hope that the flowers of life shall bloom again in that eternal spring.
I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he seem dead, yet shall he live, and whoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, my brothers.
Thank you. Brothers, we're, as I said, we're now released. We want all of us to gather in the room next door for the initiation ceremony that'll start in about 15-20 minutes. Thank you.